Everyone, good morning, good afternoon to whoever are the other part of the country or the world. So, first of all, thank you very much, Sophie, for collaborating this particular Race to Zero dialogue and bringing in the right, I would say, stakeholders because this is what is important, especially in revolutionizing the electric mobility. The right stakeholders must come together and then make right decisions and discussions so that the ecosystem is encouraged. So, to introduce, I'm Rajiv YSR. I work as the Chief Operating Officer for Avan India. Avan India has got multiple businesses, of which the prime business is we take care of the last mile deliveries through electric vehicles. The whole journey started in 2018 when IKEA was in India and started its operations from Hyderabad. And IKEA was, of course, Ricky would agree with me, was part of the EV100 campaign, which means that by 2030, all their mobility services must be converted to electric. And at the time, we were part of Avan, earlier the subsidiary of Gati. So Gati was the last mile delivery partner for IKEA in India, and we had an obligation to honor our customers' request of moving towards electric mobility deliveries. And that is how the whole journey began in the year 2018 in the month of July. It's almost 2 years plus, but then the progress that we were able to make and then the ripples that we were able to create in the market was phenomenal. Earlier, when it comes to electric mobility, the discussions, the frameworks, the policies were only limited to right the passenger vehicles and then the electric buses. But with collaboration with IKEA and the kind of the good news that we have spread by delivering the products through electric vehicles, we were able to get the attention of the India's biggest think tank, that is Niti Aayog, where we have partnered to work along with the Rocky Mountain Institute and the Niti Aayog in framing multiple policies of different states, whether it is for Delhi electrical vehicle policy or for Telangana EV policy or even for the FAMES 2.0. So I think that's the contest to begin with, and I'm here to share and assure that yes, Asia is on the right track towards zero transport, and India plays a very significant and also a very leadership role in this complete journey. Next slide, please. Now, let me give you a little bit context, right, to whatever I have said so far in terms of the Indian automotive market, right? Definitely, from the passenger perspective, we are the fourth largest market in the world, and from tractors perspective, we are the first, and from two-wheelers perspective, also we are first. But then, majority of action, interestingly, is happening not necessarily in the passenger movement, but in the freight movement. Now, this slide is only to tell you that auto industry has been the focus of the government from the beginning, and it would continue to remain as the focus of the government. And with the recent developments that have happened across the different policies and different principles of the government in the automotive industry, the electric mobility is going to be the new darling, right? Let's move on. Yeah. Now, while that is, I mean, there are reasons why the electric mobility or the electric vehicle industry has become the new darling, because while India is shining and while India is really growing in terms of economy, but there are certain problems which cannot be ignored, right? Of course, during the pandemic, the numbers have changed, but then in general, 14 out of 15 most polluted cities in the world are in India, and the 2.5 particulate matter by which you measure the air pollution, while the World Health Organization says it is 10 milligrams per cubic meter as the best benchmark, whereas in India, in a city like Kanpur, it is at around 170 milligrams per cubic meter. Now, when you look into details, while we cannot afford to slow down on our industrialization and on our factories and production, the low hanging fruit which can be handled is the transport sector, because 30% of this air pollution is generated or contributed by this transport sector. In addition to this, while these are all the facts and figures of how the life has been here, but we also have an obligation, because as per the UNFCCC treaty in Paris, we have signed that by 2030 we will bring down the carbon emissions by 33% to the numbers registered in 2005, right? So, I mean, This is like, I mean, as the years go by, the industrialization, the emissions would only increase, but then the targets that we are treating are we are chasing are completely contrary. So uh, fortunately, India doesn't have a choice but to go towards electric mobility revolution because of multiple, right, geographical, political, and right, internal reasons. And at this point of time, we are at the cusp of that particular revolution where we are going to see the results very soon. Let's move on, right? So obviously, electric mobility becomes the inevitable and obvious choice for India because number one, it definitely battles the biggest enemy, that is pollution, and our dependency on oil imports is also high, and that would come down. And it is an opportunity. Now, next after to my friend Ricky Jain, as he was saying, there are so many, I would say, progressions, and there were so many developments that are happening in our neighboring country, that is in China. If at all there is any other country which can complement and at the same time compete in terms of technology, in terms of development, and collaborate for a better world for all of us to live, definitely India, which is the neighbor of China, cannot be ignored. And this also gives an opportunity for India to emerge as a market leader, not necessarily in the IT and the services industry, but also in the electric mobility technology. Now let's move on. Now, having said these particular things, this slide is only to show you how the world has handled it so far. Especially, I would like to bring the focus, though the details are of electric passenger vehicles, but then there is a shadow or reflection of the complete electric mobility vehicle segments, right? You see, unfortunately, India hasn't yet made significant numbers to be there on that mark. But then I'm very sure in the coming years, as we are driving this EV revolution upfront, we will very soon be there. If you look at the progress from 2014 to 2018, look at how our neighbor China has started just at 0.1 million sales, and right now it is at 2.3 million sales, and then the penetration is not even 10% of the complete sales. When it is compared with the nations like Norway, where the numbers are very limited, but then the penetration is almost 40%. Definitely, to add to these numbers and to reduce the different costs in the electric mobility revolution, the volumes needs to add up, and then I can only see that the volume addition can only come from a market like India. Let's move on, please. Yeah, one slide back. One slide back. I'm sorry. Now let me also give you from the freight perspective. Let me give you from the freight perspective. Now, out of 30 million vehicles approximately manufactured and sold in India, around 1% of those vehicles are three-wheelers and 1% of vehicles are commercial vehicles. That means both of them put together are only roughly around 2 million vehicles. The beauty here is, in India at this point of time, what's happening? The reason why I said that the freight is the low-hanging fruit, because the cost parity for the passenger vehicles is yet to be arrived in India. For example, the difference between a conventional fuel product and an electric mobile product, the difference is still more than 70-80%. Whereas the cost parity was achieved, especially in three-wheeler segment, right? That is one positive from a point from the product development perspective. Now let us look at the market, how it is evolving. The e-commerce market is literally frothing, bubbling, and booming in India, especially during the pandemic. There were more number of customers who have opted for e-commerce deliveries, even for their groceries and other things, right? Now, with the e-commerce market increasing and with the recent investment of Microsoft's, Google's into the infrastructure through Geo, right, for the broadband infrastructure to Geo, the internet facilities is only going to penetrate and even get stronger into tier 2, tier 3 cities, not just limited to metros. So this infrastructure is actually paving the way for the e-commerce giants to almost get into the every nook and corner of the city. Now, when this happens, right, the biggest contributor for both the cost and pollution in the complete e-commerce and logistics industry is the last mile delivery. Now, when it comes to last mile delivery, now I've told you from the product perspective, in terms of three-wheeler cargo, we are already there. And from the market perspective, we are almost there. I mean, the demand for the cargo vehicles is going to increase because of the rise in the e-commerce deliveries. And then the last mile deliveries, the next lowest hanging fruit is the LCVs, right? The light commercial vehicles. So it is still many years for India to adopt the HCVs, unlike our neighbor China. But in India right now, the market is quite ripe for three-wheeler cargos and for four-wheelers LCVs to the tunes of Tata Ace, Mahindra Jeeto, and those to name few. And I know for sure through insider reports that most of these players have already have their beta versions available in electric mobility, but just that they are waiting for the right move from the government to push them because they are still battling with the priorities of BS6 and electric mobility. So I think with this whole thing, I'm very confident in saying that Asia is the next epic center for the electric mobility revolution, and India would give a very tough competition. At the same time, would strongly collaborate in this particular movement with our not only with our neighbor China, but to the rest of the world, because the prices have to come down. If the prices have to come down, the volumes have to increase. And in terms of freight, we are already there, especially from last mile delivery perspective. We were able to achieve the price parity in three-wheeler cargos, and we are not very months away from the four-wheeler cargo. I'm sure we will soon be there. And in terms of the middle mile or the line haul, I think we are still 5-6 years away from actual 8-tonners, 10-tonners getting converted into electric. But from the low-hanging fruit, I think we are there. The government has also given the right incentives through its FAMES 2.0 policy. And I think we are all there, and it is time. These are interesting times and exciting times to see and watch out how the whole thing is evolving and how India is going to play a leading role in the complete electric mobility revolution. With this, Thank you very much, Sophie, and the rest of the panelists. It was great listening to you, and it was great to participate with you. I feel very much honored and privileged to be here, open to questions.
Yeah. Thank you, Rajiv. You're energized like an electric vehicle, I can say that. I have noted cost comparability is a factor. E-commerce is booming. You didn't mention it explicitly, but of course, electric vehicles moves the pollution at least away from inside India to outside. Can you just name, what is, if you were Santa Claus and you could wish one thing, what is it that you need to make electric trucking go to scale in India? What is the one thing? Is it money? Is it government policy? Is it multinationals like IKEA asking, well, what is it? What is the one thing? Only one.
I think that one thing is pull from customers like IKEA. I need Amazons, Flipkarts of the world also to take a similar stand like IKEA. I think that is when the demand is generated, and then the rest of the thing rolls.
Excellent. I like that. And the reason, and I agree with you, because if there's a few leading companies who take charge, governments feel confident to put in policy to support its growth, and manufacturers will follow because there's demand. Customer demand is really leading. Thank you for that. We're going to move on to the next speaker, and that is Glinda Batan from the Clean Air Asia, my former colleague, and very nice to see you again, Glinda. And I would like to give the floor to you to talk a little bit about what's happening in Asia